There's a, if you've had a chance, and I don't want to take too much of Jono's, I don't want to steal his fire, but he did a very elaborate parking analysis. And within that parking analysis, when he went out on those 10 separate occasions, and there's a list that's been provided in this study, and he highlighted, he went out on a Friday, May 10th, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He went out Thursday, all the days. It wasn't a select day. And he went out at different times. And they ran every hour. Every hour they counted parking spaces. Every hour in terms of being able to see how many spaces are occupied. And it basically shows that almost all of the time there are parking spaces available. And that further emphasizes our point. The city codes require parking based on a formula. But there's the formula, and then there's the actual need, the actual demand. Mm-hmm. What is that actual demand? And what we're saying is the actual demand, as Jono points out in this study, is that the on-site parking supplemented with valet parking, primarily for the children's indoor play area, is more than sufficient to provide the parking needs for these businesses. And I want to also emphasize further that when we talk about valet parking, we are now talking about valet parking on our site only. We're not talking about off-site facilities. We're talking about on our site only. And we will provide you with a valet parking plan and operation to show you how that would work. And we predominantly would only need it during peak business times to be able to meet the needs of the parking. I'm going to conclude my remarks. I see that my timer is on. If you have questions, I'd be happy to provide answers, or I can turn it over to Jono, and he can kind of walk you through the parking analysis.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Kudadati, do you have anything to say? You are the applicant for which?
Live, Love, Play.
Okay.
Nari Kodadati, office in Glendale. I also did the plans for both units. Mm-hmm. They went through plan check. They went to plan check with the changes, and obviously without planning approval, we couldn't continue plan check. So Unit 1 still has expired permits, but again, it can go through building and safety as well as TARMA.
Okay.
They meet all fire codes and building and safety codes. So I guess once this
just related to the operation or parking or anything else, should I ask you questions?
No, I think Mr. Khan covered
okay.
it well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Good. Thanks. All right. Why don't I just start with some questions? Do you have, Mr. Bagdani, do you have any?
I just want to add a couple things.
Okay, that's
Rodney,
fine.
I think in detail explain. One of the trends that we see right now in this type of restaurants, and I can name you In-N-Out Burger, Chick-fil-A restaurants, Tarme, which is a sit-down mostly restaurant, and there's a lot of burger fast food places. The amount of takeout business has so much increased so that these kind of restaurants almost have a kitchen dedicated to just for the takeout business. They're doing some of the restaurants, they do more takeout than the actual customers who are coming in. 55% of Tarma's business is takeout by Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, or they even themselves provide delivery. So since we did the restaurant is in business for almost 3 years now, 2.5 years. When we did the parking analysis, the amount of takeouts that they were doing wasn't, they said about 10-15%. Mm-hmm. That has grown to 55%. So that has technically helped the peak hour parking demand. So it's a lunchtime, or even on Saturdays, there is more takeout. People now, they don't want to go out there and buy food, but most of the time, business lunch hours are on during the week. So even those people save the time to go out there in their half-hour, 45-minute lunch hour to grab the food, so they get deliveries.
So how does this sort of change in
It
the
improves
percentage of takeout versus the percentage of eating in the restaurant? How does that impact traffic, parking, that
Okay, all
sort
I'm
of
saying is, from the latest information I got from them, 45% of the restaurant business is people who walk. There's a lot of businesses around there. They can tell how many, about 15, 20% maybe walking, because it's a restaurant in the middle of a lot of businesses around there. So a lot of people actually walk to the restaurant to buy food. Adjacent businesses and offices, they do that. They don't go and drive there. So that has helped the parking, on-site parking, especially on Saturdays. That takeout business is much more, delivery is a lot more. So that actually, when Rodney said that we want to do on-site valet, the on-site valet is because it's easier, depending on the size of the play facility customers. If they have a large number of kids, usually their parties are about 15 to 20. And they ask them to carpool, because people most of the time with kids, parents pick up a couple of kids and bring to their. So there's not necessarily sometimes even need to park the cars off-site, which they have done in the past. Now on-site, because of the food delivery business, has reduced the demand for tarmac. Also, the size of they have less and less people who are actually driving because they share carpool. So on-site valet parking is done right now. Only when it's very, very busy. Sometimes there's an overlap between one party and the next party, where some cars are coming and the rest of the cars are leaving, is where still on-site they're able to do that. So all I wanted to share with you is that the demand for the parking for the tarmac has gone down because of delivery business or takeout business.
It just doesn't that mean they need the same amount of parking?
No.
But they're just the car isn't there for as long because they're not eating at the restaurant. They're picking up the restaurant and then picking up at the restaurant and then leaving.
Most of what I said, 55%, those are all either delivery by the restaurant itself, or Grubhub or DoorDash. They are in advance. They already have the food, and they pretty much know which spaces that they designate. We can even designate that for pickup at the Windsor, near Windsor. The farthest near the exit, because the exit of the restaurant is a parking space. Do this, and most restaurants do that right now to say, for pickup only. And therefore, as soon as the person arrives, they pull into the space, their food is ready, they pick up and go. So it doesn't increase the parking demand. To the reverse, it actually decreased the parking demand, because most of it is 55% is actual delivery. So you're not having 10 cars coming in, each one is coming and picking up food. Most of this also, they bundle the pickups. You don't do one pickup, one trip. They do like several pickups. So because the demand is very, very high these days for this type of service. So that has also reduced the parking demand compared to what we did before.
Okay. So the valet is just associated with the play place. So if I was coming to eat at Tarmay as a customer during a peak period, how does that work? Is the valet going to say, "Oh, sorry, you're going to the restaurant"?
No, they will not refuse. It just doesn't make sense for you to go buy a $12 meal and then pay, let's say, $5 or $4 valet. People don't do that, but they will not be refused. So if you, for whatever reason, you're in a rush, you want to do it, but that's not the part of the agreement that the play facility has, because they collect all the tickets at the end of the party.
Right.
Let's say 5 or 6 or 10 cars came for it. They collect the tickets. The play facility says, okay, there are 10 tickets, $5 for each valet. That's $50 you pay. But the person who's going to come and go, that ticket technically doesn't belong to if we have to make arrangements and Tarme pays for it, that's an option, but it doesn't make sense to have a fast food type restaurant and do a valet parking for them, but they will not be refused. If customer wants to valet, they will do the valet for them.
Because I can see if you eat at the restaurant and there's a lot of activity in the parking lot, I can see the benefit of using a valet. If I'm just a delivery person, I don't want to mess with valet.
Right.
I just want to park, get into the restaurant, get the food, and then leave.
I don't think we've had that situation that a customer comes to Tarme and wants, if I may ask them.
Sure.
I haven't observed it, so I don't think we have a situation where a customer comes to go to Tarme restaurant and ask for valet. First of all, they haven't refused it if they did, but I don't think we've had that situation.
Why don't you come up if you're going to.
We never had that kind of situation.
Microphone,
And
please.
Also, the valet people, they are ready. If one of our customers wants to use their valet, they are ready to do that. But I never had that. Like since 3 years, nobody asked that.
Because why?
Because we have like enough parking for the customers.
Okay.
We never had that issue that there wasn't parking, and the people came and like they are looking where to park, and they gave it to the valet people. We didn't have that issue.
Okay.
Yeah, since like now 3 years.
Because me as a customer, I wouldn't necessarily know there's a valet here. Oh, the valet is only for this business, not the other business.
If I may add, sorry. The valet.
Speak into the mic, please.
Oh, sorry. The gentleman that handles the valet, it's a couple different gentlemen, but they're always outside, so it's helpful. So when they're coming in, like someone drives into the driveway and they'll say, "Oh, we're going into Tarme," and he'll be like, "Okay, there's a spot right there." So he kind of regulates that.
Okay.
And it's very helpful.
Okay.
And then, and if in a case, like for example, let's say the parking was full, he would have no problem saying just do a stacked parking right here because he's outside the whole time, the entire day. So he would just be like, just park right here, and he can kind of help them. But they're very helpful in that way, and they've helped kind of regulate the traffic and help people, back in and out of the spots and say, there's a spot over there.
Okay. And who are you?
I'm Armina Akopian. I'm the owner of Live, Love, Play. The
Okay.
playground.
Okay.
Sorry, and I'm
Thank
late.
you.
My apologies.
That's okay. And then you need to introduce yourself too. So
Yeah,
There's
my
some-
name is Harut Kozian.
Okay.
I'm one of the owners of Tarme Mediterranean Grill.
Okay. Okay. So there's a rep from both
Yeah.
places. Okay. Thank you.
Roger, I just wanted to point out one more thing. Typical is in South Glendale, obviously on-street parking in their residential streets are tight. So people who, we've observed it because we've verified it when we were doing the study, that almost all of their employees are people who live in the vicinity because it's easier for them. They just walk to the restaurant. They're employees, number one. Number two, not necessarily people who park on Windsor are employees of these businesses because there's a tire shop. There's others, all of them, not necessarily maybe they all have off-street parking. So it's typical that they park in the residential street. So they're not necessarily these are the restaurant employees because we know they walk to the restaurant or they use public transit.
Do you have any record, or have you done a survey in terms of, these are the employees of the play place, these are the employees of the restaurant, these people walk, these people bike, these people drive, these people carpool?
I have not surveyed the employees. It's based on the input that I've received from both establishments that, as I said, one employee is only at the Love facility throughout the day.
Right.
And they just park right in front of the office. It doesn't impact anyone. And then the Tarme employees are mostly walking based on the input I received from the local residents who actually work at Tarme.
Okay.
So they're mostly local. But I haven't done an on-street survey to see the difference.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I've got a list of questions, and I'm going to try to make them in a logical order, but they may not turn out that way. So just bear with me. How often are the parties held during the week? And you need to come up to the mic. Whoever talks has to come up to the mic.
So that varies. We generally don't have during the week, as in Monday through Friday.
Right.
Friday night, we have a party almost every week.
Okay.
Saturdays and Sundays, we have parties throughout the day. Weekdays, as in Monday through Thursday, we'll occasionally get a party. I don't know if, let's say, of the entire month, we might have 2 or 3 that fall onto a weekday.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they're smaller parties because generally kids are in school. Sometimes like a parent just wants to, that date's their actual child's birthday and they just come there with a few friends or family members and celebrate like a smaller intimate gathering.
Okay. So during the week, like 3-4 times a month? During the whole 4?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And the business is open every day, Monday through Sunday, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And hours of operation?
Or 10 to 7?
10 to 7, thank you. 7 days a week?
Yes. Weekend hours are a little longer because we have the birthday parties. So Monday through Friday, 10 to 7, and then like Saturday, Sunday, it's well, actually, it's generally 10 to 7, but like it might vary depending upon if we're not booked for a party or if maybe the party went a little longer.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you had, on your website, you had certain times
Yes.
where you could book.
Book it, yeah,
And you
exactly.
also had if you wanted to book a little longer, there was an hourly
Exactly.
rate.
Uh-huh.
So, it could be later than 7.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How late? What's the latest?
Generally, people add an hour. If they were going to add at the end, then they'll go 5 to 8. Or like half an hour, so 5 to 7:30 or 5 to 8. People don't like to start the parties too early, so we don't usually start earlier than
10?
10.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then, after 7 or after 8, they all go home. You stay to sort of clean up and then check out.
Yeah, staff stays an extra half hour to clean up, and that's all.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Kiesel, can I add something?
Sure.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
Armene brought with her, and she was caught in traffic, otherwise we would have had this earlier. She brought with her quite a number, I want to say at least 20 plus more letters that support our application request.
Okay.
And in fact, many of them are directly adjacent businesses to our subject property. So I want to put those in the record as well.
Okay. Are they duplicative of these or? No? Okay. Okay. Do you have copies of these?
No.
Okay.
So if we can get copies.
We just need to make copies because we keep them.
Right.
So, okay.
The other thing I wanted to add, and Mr. Bagdanian did a very good job with this, was in terms of the parking, there's actually, you mentioned about people picking up and dropping off, or has there been a survey done for the restaurant as to how many employees drive, walk, bike, use public transportation? We haven't done a formal survey, but having been out there quite a bit, it looked to me, as I've spent time there was 2 employees, one of them, 2 that drove. One drove there, but they also do deliveries. So they come and go. Another drove there. Most of them are walking, as Mr. Bagdanian stated. Mm-hmm. I mentioned also that there's public transportation very close by, and we also have 5 spaces that we're not including as part of this request, 5 spaces along Glendale Avenue. That is
Street parking.
street parking. Okay. Now, oftentimes, some of the other businesses park there as well, but those spaces are still available for either pickup, drop off, or for general use, which could include our uses as well.
Is that what in the parking study, the charts all have a column, number of cars parked on Glendale Avenue. Is that what that means?
Yes, it's only the parking that's directly adjacent to our
the
site,
business?
in front of our site. And that's the only thing we would look at and say, and we're not claiming them, but we're stating that
Right,
they're
they're
available
available.
to our customers
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, and then it looks like, if I'm understanding this correctly, most of the time, that street parking is mostly full.
Most of the time it's full, but you have to remember too, that's primarily during regular business hours, right? So in the evenings.
Yeah, for the most part.
And on
yeah.
the weekends, it's going to be open and available because most of those businesses, and I highlighted that originally in terms of the context of the area, most of those businesses operate, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
The auto,
Well, you have a lot of auto repair, auto type facilities, and that's their basic hours of operation. They don't work late nights, they don't work weekends, et cetera, which is very complementary to our businesses.
I shouldn't maybe assume. Tarmey's peak hours, days, are they, aside from lunch and dinner, is Saturday and Sunday, are those 2 days their peak days? Or what?
I would ask
That's fine.
for Ruth to.
If I tell you, maybe we don't have a peak day.
Okay.
Always, like I was talking with Rodney about that too, like every day is similar. Like
Okay.
Sunday and Saturday is not changing anything. Like
Anything notable?
yeah, notable, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Our sales in the last 2 years are always the same, and we didn't have a peak day. Sometimes maybe in 1 month there is one day is people come more than other days, but I cannot come and say this is my peak day.
Yeah, okay. Thursday, you always serve 100 or more people. You can't say that.
I can't say that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right, thanks. So hours of the operation of the restaurant are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And you're not anticipating any changes to those hours of operation?
Yeah, we just changed it. It will be from 10 to 9:30.
10 to 9:30?
Yes.
Okay. 10:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. So you're opening...
11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And our code considers this a fast food restaurant. I'm assuming it operates a little bit differently than, what I commonly think of as a fast food restaurant, like McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell. Can you describe how the restaurant operates?
Our restaurant, mostly the customers comes in for max between 15 to 30 minutes max.
Okay.
They come in,
Do
they eat a sandwich and daily, because mostly they are from adjacent businesses. Mm-hmm. Okay, they come in, they don't have a lot, because they have to walk, let's say from the dealers, own brand, and the mechanic shops. They come in walking, they lose a couple of minutes walking to the restaurant, and they have a very little time that they eat and they leave.
do they commonly?
So
Okay.
maybe I can add too. So when we think of a fast food restaurant, like you said, McDonald's, then you have people that are lined up, all the food is already made, they're getting people, it's a quantity thing with McDonald's. You try to get as many people in and out as you can. Here it's different. It's only a quick service or fast food restaurant according to your code, because you're walking up to the register, you're making your order, and it's quality food, so it's not already prepared in a little package that they're going to hand to you. And so then you get a number, you sit down at your table in terms of, then the food is prepared, and then in terms of you're getting your food, is it served to you, or
Yes.
they serve it to you?
So the waiter or waitress, when your
Person
food's
that works
ready,
there.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Server.
works there, and then deliver it to you. So in terms
Okay.
of it being a quick service, it's just the definition as you guys have. Whereas if someone had come to your table,
Right.
it would be a full-service restaurant that requires less parking.
right?
The only difference is this is really a full-service type operation, but since you have to go to the register, your code defines it as quick service. That's the difference.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have someone when I enter the restaurant sitting me down, a host or hostess, nor do you have someone give me a menu. It's a menu board similar to McDonald's, but then when the food is ready, someone serves it to you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In the traffic parking analysis, it suggests that during weekdays and evenings, weekday evenings and weekends, that there may or will be not enough parking on site, which is a little. It's in conflict a little bit with the staff report. Am I interpreting that correctly? Is that accurate? And the other thing is, it appears that the parking study, there's never an instance where there is no available parking on site. It always appears to be, excess parking based on the numbers here. But then, based on some of the conclusions that are reached in the other parking analysis, it again appears like, okay, there may be some times where both businesses are operating at peak or near peak, that there may be instances where there isn't enough parking on site. Can you sort of go over that? And
We did this survey back in May of last year,
Okay.
2019.
I'm also looking at one from November.
Yeah, November. We did a November survey. Pretty much the results are consistent. What it's interesting for us, as I said, both businesses, the valet operation, both businesses have established themselves already. So the parking demand pretty much is the same. To be conservative, that's what we stated, that there are times if you just relied heavily just on the on-site parking, there might be a minute or 2 or 5 minutes, let's say you pulled in the parking lot, and at that same time you may be waiting because these cars are pulling in or pulling out at that situation. And at the same time, when the valet operation is doing their valet parking, there might be a couple of minutes where the parking might be full, totally full. So if you pulled in at that moment, there isn't enough space at that moment. However, most of the time, I would say more than 90% of the time, the parking works itself out because the valet immediately may even, instead of parking all the cars immediately in the right spaces, they may pull out to the side of the restaurant, let the car go by, park into the new spaces, so that it always balances it out in most cases. And I said the more delivery business that they have started doing and the more DoorDash, Uber, type pickups are occurring, there's the less demand for parking, which means that space both is available for the customers who come in to go to the restaurant, or for the guests that are coming. In most cases, like Armin mentioned, if somebody is coming in to go to the play facility, the valet guy says, no, please don't park there, because they always want to make sure the restaurant parking is available. It's because they can do the valet. So the valet operation at all times take care of any parking demand that occurs on site. It's never a point where you're going to be waiting 5-10 minutes to get into a parking space if you go to the restaurant. And the on-street parking, as I said, it's 2-hour parking on Glendale Avenue. There's only 2 spaces, really. Those are most of the time are parked by customers or businesses, so we didn't even account for that in our survey, because that's also, whenever that space is available, people pull into those spaces. So there's a couple of spaces also on street on Glendale that we didn't account for it to be conservative.
Okay. In your opinion, as a parking traffic engineer, would it be beneficial in this case to designate 1 or 2 parking spaces on site for delivery only?
Yes, we can do that. I mean, it's not a location, as I said. Technically, the delivery folks, not only the Tarmay delivery or the people who are typically delivering, they are local people. Most of these pickup deliveries are for local businesses. So the people who are doing DoorDash, Uber Eats, they're all local people that are doing this kind of work. So they know where to park to get in and out very fast, and they know the employees of the restaurant. So they kind of get a priority immediately, because they want to get the food while it's hot to the customer. So they can be designating 2 spaces near
In your opinion, would that be beneficial to help the overall parking situation, or not necessarily so?
It will help the overall parking situation. Keep in mind that sometimes, I'm sure we all do it, when you go to a restaurant, there's no parking there. It says for pickup only. You act like you're picking up, but you're not. But in most cases, as I said, there are 2 spaces in the back toward Windsor. I cannot point to it, but those can be essentially designated for pickups. That may be easier because it facilitates entry and exit.
Like there's kind of one here.
Yes.
That's kind of the.
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Right. And along the building, along the building on the south side of the building, we've noticed that sometimes for delivery of merchandise or products or groceries to the restaurant, they pull into the side of the restaurant, and they don't pull in. If it's one of their larger pickup trucks that they deliver food or beverages, they pull in that space. They don't even go into it, because again, they instructed not to use the customer parking for that. So a combination of those will work better for the entire operation of the parking lot if 2 spaces are designated.
Okay. Let's see. I had another question on my mind and I just lost it. So, could valeting could providing a valet operation allow you to park all necessary parking on site? Necessary isn't the right word.
The parking demand for the
all demanded parking on site.
I did talk to the valet operator, Sergey. He is one of the very good local valet operators that does a lot for banquet facilities and so on. So as I'm sure you're familiar with banquet facilities, most of the time there isn't enough on-site parking for banquet halls because they all come in at the same time and they exit at the same time. The advantage for the valet in this location is that because it's programmed, so you know how many cars are coming, because most of the time the valet knows how many guests are coming for the 2 o'clock event, how many are coming at the 4 o'clock event. So they're already ahead of time. They can plan. Unlike like a banquet facility, you don't know how many people are actually going to be driving. They ask their customers how many guests we're expecting. Are they all going to be driving, or are they going to be carpooling, because they encourage them to carpool. Most of the time that's the case. They pick up a couple of kids together. Instead of 3 families coming, one family picks up the kids and brings them. And so it helps the valet operation, and they're able to stack the cars mostly because it's you can park mostly at toward the Windsor south end of that, because parking along Glendale Avenue, the on-site parking is also angle parking. So rather they would keep those that are along in the frontage of Tarmay. Those spaces will be used mostly for customer parking because it's mostly in and out fast enough. They would use the back of or south end of the parking lot to stack the cars. Again, the valet is always there in case there is a problem. Immediately they have the keys, they jump, move the car, let the car go by, or they have to move. One of the Love Place parents wants to leave early, immediately they're available. So the maneuvering of the vehicles, it's not that difficult on site. And I've seen this valet operator work there all the time, and it is a practical thing because they can pre-plan their valet operation at most of the time based on the number of guests are coming.
Okay, so you believe that providing for valet on site can accommodate the entire parking demand of the site?
Based on the discussion I had with the valet operator, because these valet operators know the business in terms of, we can all design a valet parking plan and say this is how it is.
But if you're not a valet.
But if you're not a valet, every valet operator will do it a little differently. Based on my experience of valet operators, you design a valet operation, okay, here's how you park it, but the demand goes up and down, so they're not going to follow that plan. So as long as they know how they're going to valet, they can designate the area. Depending on the parallel park, they stack park, they park side by side or head to head. Those are all the operational detail that a valet operator does based on the condition of that particular day or particular event.
Okay. And if the valet operator or you or whomever say, you know, listen, we can get this much, but it doesn't necessarily reach the demand that you have in these documents. According to this document, there are various sites around that you can use their parking to fulfill the overall demand, the overflow demand.
Yes,
Okay.
those sites are available. Ideally, as I said, it's more convenient for the customer in terms of wait time.
Sure.
Because as you walk out, the car is parked there, or they will bring the car right in front for the customer of Love facility to be picking up the car. If it's farther away, obviously, it takes a little bit longer time to do so. So, but if it has to be done, those facilities have been identified just in case. As I said, they know already their customer base and how many cars are coming, and if it's a large event, which most of the time I think there are about 20 kids, right? About 20 kids. That's about 10 cars, practically speaking.
Is there a limit to how many kids
They can difference at one time?
that can, either through like a, building or fire code, or
I think they have
because I know there's in the packages, they had a limit, and then I think there were opportunities if you wanted a few more kids, there was a supplemental fee. But is there an overall, if all of a sudden I wanted to host a party there and I wanted 50 kids, could I do it there, or would I have to go somewhere else that?
Okay.
2 years in a row, we had
Armina?
on a
Can you come forward, please? My understanding, based on the information we have received from you, is most of the time you have maximum about 25 kids, 20,
Yeah.
22 kids or so. Is there a time, question is, if there's somebody comes in and says, I want to do a party for 50 kids, is it even practical to do it?
Yeah,
in
we
the
kind
summer?
of discourage, we don't, because the, for example, like even just the seating for adults, we have about seating for 36 adults inside. So it's not really feasible to push all these people into this building. So generally people who book the party, that's just kind of what their guest count is about.
Okay.
On occasion, you'll have parties where, let's say, there are siblings of the children that were anticipated by the host or coming with their, as a guest. And sometimes you might have a little more, but like we've never had any issues.
Okay, and you don't know offhand if the building code or fire code says, no more than 50 people in this.
I think the code for the whole building, it's more. It's like 100 something.
Yeah, I just threw out a number, but
Yeah,
okay.
it's like 100 something, but that I'm not sure if that includes like the whole space, and it's just
Okay,
it's more.
okay, all right.
Our surveys, and based on the times we did the survey when they were doing valet, most of the events that I checked with their bookings, there were 20 to 25 kids maximum
Okay.
on the typical events that we've seen when we were doing our surveys at the time.
Okay. Is there a reason why the two businesses haven't sort of in concert hired a valet service?
The best case scenario, the reason, as I said earlier, for a Tarme type restaurant, which is not a McDonald's, or it's kind of one level up as far as the type of restaurant it is, it just customers don't go there and do valet parking to get their food. So they expect to find a parking space and do that. For the Love Play facility, because it's a convenience, you're dealing with kids, and you don't want to go park farther. First of all, don't want to park on residential street because there is limited number of spaces. And you're mostly dealing with little kids that you want them to be safe and very close to the facility. So Love Place started a valet operation. But they work hand in hand with Tarme because they're close neighbors, and therefore the operation of the valet is done by Love facility, because the rest of the time, all day, there is no need for valet parking. Most of the customers are for Tarme at lunchtimes, weekdays. Only those occasions, 3 or 4 times during the week, that it may happen when they will put the valet in during the week. And mostly Saturday, Sunday is their prime time for their events. That's why they also have the valet on those days. So it's primarily because of the play facility that they have the valet. Otherwise, it's not practical for Tarme to have one, but they work together.
Okay, all right. All right, does anybody else have anything to say?
Just one item real quickly. One of the items that came up was you were speaking with Jono about having 2 delivery spaces designated on the site.
Yeah.
And we were talking, I was talking with Harut. I think 1 should be sufficient, so that other space is open and available on site as well. And as long as you're comfortable with that and Jono's comfortable with that, that's what we would suggest as well. It's just to have the 1 for the delivery. And then the last thing, just to conclude, I mentioned this in my opening comments about how both of these businesses are very professional. And these are very professional people that have been operating them with a substantial investment into this building. So they have a lot at stake here. And they're very serious business people. And I think that's why it's reflected in such a positive manner. Even though they've been operating for the past few years, you're really seeing very positive comments coming from, I don't know how many letters now we've submitted from adjacent businesses, at least 30. and some include residents as well. And that's a testament to these two here. Anyway, I just conclude my remarks. Thank you very much. We hope you see approving these.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, I have another question. When can you provide me with a valet plan and some of the other things that you volunteered to do?
Sure. First of all, I thought my last part was like a concluding speech.
I know, I'm
You know,
sorry.
I had such
Yeah.
momentum going.
Yeah.
But
It was
what we could do is we'll go back and kind of regroup, and we'll work on the valet parking plan. I can't tell you how quickly we can do a valet parking plan, but we'll work with the valet parking operator, obviously with the businesses and with Jono leading the way. And we'll get that to you, ASAP. We understand that's a priority. And then you said there were other things, other information that we needed to provide to you?
Yeah, well, let me just look at my
Sure.
notes and the contract that the
Sure.
the host signs.
And Armene, before you arrived, I had mentioned, because we spoke, that as part of your contract with your host, that you write in there that they're required to have valet parking.
Yes.
So we were-
Could I get a copy of that?
Sure.
Yeah. It can just be a blank one,
Okay.
but just your standard contract that says, okay, fill in the blank name is renting it for this. Part of your responsibility is to provide valet parking through this company.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay. So there was that, and then it could only help your case if you had some documentation in terms of the number of employees walking to work, driving to work, carpooling, taking bus,
Sure.
that can only help. Obviously, you can provide that if you want or not provide that, but.
Mr. Kisa, I think that's simple enough. Both the business owners are here, so it's easy enough to find out
Okay.
from their employees and conduct the survey, and then we'll summarize it and give it to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect.
Okay, so you've applied for 2 parking reductions.
Yes.
So that, if in fact a valet plan can show you can park either the amount of required parking on site, which seems kind of a stretch, or the amount of parking on site through a valet plan that the 2 businesses actually demand, which is a lesser number, which
Right.
seems more realistic, then the parking reduction is maintained if it's approved. And part of it is, okay, the 2 businesses only demand a certain amount, and that's shown, and the valet shows that amount of parking, and it's a realistic valet plan, then the parking reduction can be maintained.
Okay.
If in fact the valet plan can't accommodate all the demand, then these other surrounding businesses, which you've mentioned in one of the parking analysis, to provide off-site parking is an option, but that would require also another type of planning application.
Sure.
And so I think what I'd like to do is I'll close the public hearing, and then I guess my final question is, I think I would prefer continuing the hearing to a date certain. Is there a particular, and I know you all want to wrap this up as soon as possible. Is there a date that you can shoot for, that's comfortable for you, that you're available, or should?
Mr. Kiesel, the three items that you've asked for, the contract from Armony, she could probably leave now and go print it and be back with it in a minute.
Right.
Okay, so that's not going to take time. The survey of the employees is very similar. We could do this in a matter of a few days. And then the last is the valet parking plan. And I'm looking over at Jono as to how long would he estimate a valet parking plan taking to put together?
2 to 3 weeks.
Say a couple weeks. So do you think realistically 2 weeks from today we could be back to conclude this? 3 weeks from today we would be back to conclude this?
Okay, so 3 weeks from today,
26.
26, thank you. So, just to be clear, so I'm going to close the public hearing today, now. What I'd like to do is continue the public hearing to a date certain, and that date certain is February 26th, 2020.
Okay.
So let's continue it to that date. And if in fact the valet plan shows everything on site, then we can take the case under submission on that date, February 26th. If in fact the valet plan cannot accommodate all parking, then the parking use permit application needs to be submitted, and if that's the case, we may need to continue this case further off into the future, just for everybody's knowledge.
Mr. Kiesel, I think either way we'll come back and show you the results, right? And
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
that way you can draw a conclusion. I think we're pretty confident about being able to provide the parking demand all on site, only because if I looked through this parking analysis that was done prior, it showed a maximum number of cars at the peak hour time that needed to be valet parked, and that maximum number could be accommodated on site. But I don't want to just say that.
Yeah.
Let's show you a plan that shows that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
just tie that into, here's the max parking demand.
Sure.
It's less than what's required, so we need the parking
Right.
reduction.
Okay.
If it's all accommodated on site, that's all we need.
Right.
So,
Okay.
all right.
Sounds fair. Thank you very much,
Good.
Mr. Kiesel.
Thank you. Okay. Those are the two cases today. Again, I've continued them to February 26, 2020, and that concludes the meeting, the planning hearing officer meeting for today. Thanks.